surely with every difficulty, there's relief. Moving forward with a model community. And I was moved because being a military person, a soldier, I'm used to being mission driven. And at this time, I like to greet all the military personnel who served. I had to report in and give the greetings to my commander, Commander Linda Bilal from the Muslim American Veterans Association, and all the military veterans who served the country. We see recently how dangerous the mission is. My nephew was supposed to be there in Afghanistan. I come from a military family, but he had got injured on a prior assignment. And a lot of the people was over there was from the place where he was at, his unit and his base station. And so we, unfortunately, we lost lives there, but that's what happens when you put on a uniform, you sign a blank check that is payable all the way up to your life. And that's pretty much what we do as Muslims when we come into this Deen. And so I was moved when I heard of a model community. I thought about the building of New Africa, and the time is right. And so it brings up a couple of questions. What is New Africa in its conception? How do we get it built? And what actions to take now? I like to thank Imam Mohammed II and the Ministry of Mosque Cares, a community, a country, a nation. It is supported by its institutions and traditions. And for the last 13 years, Imam Mohammed has led the Mosque Cares, which is an institution. And to honor and preserve the traditions that Imam Mohammed put in place and to keep these going. And that's no easy task. But without our institutions and traditions, as a people, as a country, we're just sort of lost at sea. And those who are Navy veterans, they understand the concept of safe harbor. When you out in the ocean, you see how rough the seas are. When you're out in the ocean, you're full of water. If you've ever been out on a boat, all you see is water. And the seas can get rough. But what you look for is to come back to safe harbor, safe harbor. And there's a light there. And so the Mosque Cares is safe harbor. We know that the Mosque Cares is going to be there. We know that we'll be able to come back to this convention every year. We'll be able to come back to Savior's Day. We'll be able to come back to New World Patriotism Day. We know that we can come back when Ramadan comes. We know there's going to be a Ramadan session. And these are institutions, and this is traditions that have been put in place by Imam Mohammed. And so the Mosque Cares is really, and during the Mosque Cares convention, a deal said this is like our family reunion. We come back and we was meeting in person. One of the big things about the convention, it was a family reunion. So when he said that, it sort of put in place the Mosque Cares, not just convention, but it's also a family reunion. Imam Muhammad said one day our conventions would be like the Hajj. You would see people coming from all over to participate in our conventions and the Muslim family, and we come so we can see each other, we can network, we can greet each other. And this is where the connections are made, business is done, just like on the Hajj. He brought the concept, this concept of a new Africa. And you see within this vision, you see what could be a community, what can be a country, what can be a nation. Everything is in this concept is here. This was a vision that was put forth by Imam Muhammad. So the questions that I want to put forth today is why us? Why were we given this the blessing and the privilege of establishing a new Africa? And then why here? Why here in America? Why wasn't it somewhere else? But why here? And then why now? Why is it time now that makes it a good time? So what we're going to do to answer some of this, it says a window into the past creates a doorway into the future. And our history points a way to our destiny. Imam W.D. Muhammad told us, he said, I will be with you for 1,000 years. What does he mean by that? Well, he had a vision, a strategy, and he put so much on us. Most of the time we reflect, we're still trying to put in place what he brought to us in 1975. So his wisdom and knowledge will help our development for the next 1,000 years, for the next millennium. What he also did for us, when he picked up the American flag, he said, this is our country. There's no conflict between us being Muslim and also being American patriots. And that was big because coming out of the Vietnam War, coming out of where they had institutionalized racism, I wasn't too much, and a lot of veterans too much happy what we experienced inside the military and what happened, we came back. And then coupled with our history here in America, but he sort of brought us back into America. He had us embrace the country, and it was a peace that settled into our souls that our patriotism can also be honored, and there was no conflict between being Muslim and being American patriots. He also said some things that we're going to sort of emphasize in this presentation. He said, Al-Islam was introduced to me as freedom, justice, and equality. And he said that's what he looked for Quran. He looked for Islam to provide freedom, justice, and equality. Then he told us man means mind. Then he said, remake the world. Then New Africa. And when he said New Africa, he also said this: we don't need 3 separate states. America is such that we can do what we need to do within the constructs of this country. And then he left us with a request. He said, give me a good future. So we're talking about a model community as envisioned by Imam W.D. Muhammad. He said this, he gave us, when he first came in, this is an iconic picture. And I remember brothers, after Imam Muhammad said this, brothers would start off their conversation and they would put their fingers to their head to say, to imitate Imam Muhammad when he said, man means mind. And when we think of the mind, if most of us were asked, describe the mind. Well, what we would describe is a gray matter, but that is not the mind. The gray matter is the brain. The brain is a switching station. And so some time ago, someone came up with the concept of what they call the stick man to describe the mind. So it says, how do we turn thinking into results? And what they recognize that we have these antenna, and they drew it as an antenna, that's our 5 senses. And these 5 senses actually go out and they bring in information into the mind from our environment through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. But this is basically what animals and everything else have. They have these senses. And oftentimes these senses make you think what you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch is your reality. But what separates the man in his intellectual mind is he has perception, will, imagination, memory, intuition, and reason. And this allows the person in using these here inside his intellectual mind to override what you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. And so how, when you use them as a thinking being, man means mind, you override what you see seems to be a reality, and you're taking it to another level now because you're bringing thought comes into your head as energy. And now those thoughts can produce ideas that go much beyond what the five senses says. You can say, remake the world. And your five senses says, and your paradigm says, that's impossible. In fact, you're delusional. But when you put your faculties of your mind together and you focus in on that idea, that energy that created that idea, if you get emotionally involved in it, then that emotion becomes vibration. Vibration is expressed through action. Action produces results. Results then causes a reaction, which then produces the idea into a reality. Now, this is going to be, we're going to come back and visit this, but it goes back to man means mind. And why was that so important that Imam Mohammed had to really emphasize to that? Because we're talking about bringing a new Africa into a reality because we don't see it, but how can we still bring it into a reality? Back in the days, it said man evolved himself out of triple darkness. And so that means there was darkness, there was no light, but man evolved himself, as we were told, the black man evolved himself out of triple darkness. Why did Imam Muhammad has to bring us and say man means mind? Because slavery had attempted to set us back thousands of years in our social evolution and millions of years in our human evolution. They said that we were not human. We were like animals. So that means they put us on a level of having all fours. And that was also seen when they reduced us during the period of incarcerated slavery into non-human beings. They removed us from the human family. And this is an evolution that has taken place millions of years. So they've actually moved us back into our human development millions of years. Even when President Obama was in office, you can still hear comments of their monkeys. And they had derogatory things they were saying about the first lady, as dignified as she is. So they said we were chattel. And oftentimes you don't find us going back through the census. You have to go back through the chattel. And what you're going to see when they list us as horses, cows, pigs, Negroes. And so Imam Muhammad had to lift us up out of that to let us know man means mind.